in an LA studio. It's remarkably fluid. The creature looks great on such a small budget. The special effects were supervised by the great Willis O'Brien, the creator of King Kong and the teacher of Ray Harryhausen. O'Brien is 72 or 73 years old at the time, and Behemoth is his last film. The success of The Beast from 20,000 Phantoms also inspires the greatest radioactive sci-fi monster movie of them all, Godzilla, known as Gojira in Japan. This is 1954. It comes from Toho Studios. Now, the original title for Godzilla was the giant monster from 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. Godzilla is, of course, a prehistoric reptile that emerges from the ocean depths after he has been awakened and mutated by atomic bomb testing, just like the beast from 20,000 Phantoms. The theme of Godzilla, of course, is God, nature, taking revenge on humanity for the terror of the atomic bomb. The film, Godzilla, Gojira, accurately reflects the sense of helplessness and dread felt by the Japanese people during the Cold War, the widespread fear of uncontrollable and unpredictable nuclear weapons. Now, there's an incident in 1952 at the Bikini Atoll where the U.S. is doing atom bomb tests. There's a 15 megaton explosion instead of a 6 megaton, which was what was expected. There was a Japanese fishing ship called the Lucky Dragon that was thought to be in the safe zone, but in fact was not, and it's caught in the blast. And many of the crew members of the Lucky Dragon die of radiation poisoning. There's a widespread fear in Japan of radioactive contamination of fish and their food supply. Radiation is a major concern, or was a major concern, during the Cold War for the Japanese. Now, Godzilla's attack on Tokyo is a type of symbolic example of a rolling nuclear attack, only much slower, all the more effective that way. The nuclear bomb theme is foremost in the minds of the filmmakers and distributors. Godzilla is meant to be a living embodiment of a 5 megaton atomic bomb, the type of bomb that killed 210,000 Japanese people when it was dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Godzilla is not just a bad consequence of foolhardy nuclear testing. Godzilla is a merciless monster that kills and destroys with machine-like precision. The creature seems to be enjoying his reign of destruction and makes an impression of titanic, unyielding, destructive force. The film, Godzilla, claws at Japanese dreams and nuclear nightmares. Now, the director of Godzilla is Inoshiro Honda. Honda was a friend and colleague of the Japanese film legend Akira Kurosawa. Kurosawa is, of course, the director of Rashomon, The Seven Samurai, and many, many other classic movies. This is, in fact, a masterful work. Godzilla is a great movie. The bulk of the first Godzilla saga helps to elevate the film well above standard B-movie fare of the time. The movie has intellectual content. Now, the special effects were created by Eiji Teshibura. He brings the huge beast to life. He creates something individual and special. His imaginative use of miniatures and models is really quite amazing. Tishuburia also uses puppets. One puppet emits a smoky spray or atomic breath. So when you see Godzilla spraying his atomic breath, it's actually a puppet. It's not a guy in a suit. Now, the Godzilla suit was in fact a last resort. At first, the producers at Toho wanted to use stop-motion animation. Like it was used in King Kong. They're very, very fond of King Kong all over the world. But it was far too expensive and time-consuming. Now, there's a stuntman inside the suit. He's known as Haro Nakajima. Nakajima actually plays Godzilla until 1972. And, of course, the slew of sequels. The Godzilla suit proved very, very difficult. The first suit was stiff. Heavy, weighed 100 pounds, and was virtually impossible to use. The next design worked, but was very torturous for Mr. Nakajima. There were blisters involved. There were muscle cramps involved. You had to deal with dehydration, heat exhaustion. Suffocation was also a problem. The suit was virtually airless and can only be worn for about 5 minutes at a time. Nakajima passed out several times during the filming from heat and suffocation. He actually loses around 20 pounds during the making of the movie. Now, there were many changes in Godzilla during pre-production. Godzilla was first a giant octopus, then a hideous, disproportionate ape-like creature with a head shaped like a mushroom cloud. Then he became a T-Rex, then a fire-breathing dragon. Finally, Godzilla became a combination of an Allosaurus and Tyrannosaurus Rex. The film was originally going to be made in color. There were a number of test shots filmed in color. But it was finally decided to film the radioactive monster epic in black and white. Black and white enhanced the special effects. It hid the wires of the models in the shadows and added to the overall chilling atmosphere of Godzilla's nighttime attacks. Many scenes were filmed that were not used in the final cut. And sadly, these scenes are now lost. All we have are still photographs. For example, Godzilla originally arrived on Odo Island holding a dead cow in its mouth. This was seen as, unconvincing and cut from the movie. Godzilla got mixed reviews in Japan. Critics and audiences both complained of the exploitation of the atomic bomb devastation in Japan during World War II, not to mention the Lucky Dragon radiation incident from just a couple years before the making of the film. But Godzilla was the biggest box office hit of the year, 1954, in Japan. Now, in 1956, 2 years later, an American distributor purchases Godzilla and re-edits the film, adding new footage, intercutting new footage. These new scenes were directed by Terry Morse. The movie is retitled Godzilla King of the Monsters. An American character is intercut into the film, a foreign correspondent known as Steve Martin. This is, of course, played by Raymond Burr, who is cleverly edited into the movie. He appears to talk to Japanese characters from the original Honda version. He serves as a narrator because the story in Godzilla King of the Monsters is told in flashbacks. As I mentioned, Raymond Burr is intercut and has to react to actors and events that were actually filmed 2 years earlier. The actor is hired for 1 day's work. 1 day. And he's hustled around from one location to another. By the time you get to the end of the movie, he looks tired and nauseated, especially during the attack sequences. Morse, the director of the new footage and the editor of the new footage, leaves Honda's vision intact. The new stuff, the new footage blends in reasonably well with the original movie. Godzilla still emits its atomic breath. The monster still glows at night. Godzilla is still identified with the deadly powers of the atomic bomb, and the creature still has A-bomb-like powers. The death of the creature still comes at a terrible price. The film leaves the message: if humanity continues to test nuclear weapons, another Godzilla may appear again one day. Honda's, the original director, his symbolism and metaphor is clearly in the mind of Morse during his re-editing and reshooting. He did a pretty good job, as I mentioned. Now, Godzilla's dark nuclear roots are left intact, and the movie becomes one of the first post-World War II Japanese films to break through commercially in the United States. Now, Toho Studios builds on the international success of Godzilla, the first Japanese science fiction film, and begins working in the space opera and alien invasion genres. The destruction that can be wrought by science and political paranoia, the secret worm in the apple, is constantly showcased in these Toho films. Godzilla sparks a creative wave of science fiction monster films in Japan. That occurred at a time when mainstream Japanese film production was in a state of crisis. 1953, television broadcasting begins in Japan, and the spread of TV starts to affect the decline of cinema audiences in Japan, just like it did in the United States. Toho creates a chaotic cinematic universe rooted within the ancient Japanese gods and legends of the Shinto religion. A strong tradition. The audiences are very receptive to these modern fantasy science fiction films. Godzilla essentially saves the Japanese film industry. Many monster and sci-fi movies, radioactive sci-fi movies, are released every year. They're popular all over the world. All right. With that thought, we're going to conclude the first part